Welcome everyone to another episode of the CORECAST. As usual, I am your host, Mike Carlson, and today joined with a very, very special guest. He is a guard at Concordia University, Irvine, Connor Gleason. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Mike, for having me. Super pumped. First time, ready to go.
Well, we're excited to have you, and I want to start kind of the place we start with all of our guests. Give us your comic book number one. Give us your chapter one. How did you get into basketball? And just tell us a little bit about, how you even got here today.
Man, so it's very funny story, actually. So I was playing soccer competitively and basketball at the same time, but obviously in high school, they're in the same season. So we had a practice, club soccer practice at the Concordia soccer field, just right over here. And I talked to the team. I said, guys, I finished out the season. It was playoff time. I didn't love it anymore. It wasn't fun like it used to be, and I wanted to really pursue basketball. So I ended I started my true basketball journey at the Concordia soccer field where I ended my soccer career. And I never looked back. Been basketball all the way. So
nice. Well, what drew you to basketball? What was there anything about it? I mean, like you said, you'd kind of been playing soccer and basketball. Was there anything where you're like, okay, I like this a little bit more, or I feel a little bit more like I belong here? Take me into kind of, what drew you to hoops.
yeah, no, I always say I should have picked another sport because of my size, but I just loved the game. I loved how it was fast paced. And soccer was super fun, but they just got to the point where I just like playing basketball a lot more. It's up and down real quick. You got to do a lot of things right, and there's so many ways you can improve your game. So that's what I kind of fell in love with that. That was cool.
That's awesome. And then you said you played soccer as well. Did you play any other sports growing up, or was it, a lot of just soccer and a lot of basketball?
Yeah, it was mainly soccer and basketball. I always liked flag football, but they were kind of they would always three be in the same season or kind of around the same time. So it was super tough to squeeze all three in. So eventually you just kind of had to narrow it down, and then eventually 3-2, 2-1, and then basketball was the winner. So
that's awesome.
Cool.
That's awesome. And this is something I'm always interested in. We've talked to a lot of different athletes, from a lot of different sports. And the thing that's kind of been the common denominator with all of them is they all started playing multiple sports and really played a lot of sports, up until a certain point of their life. We talked to a hockey player, a couple of months back where, he was hitting 400 his senior season and in baseball and playing shortstop, and then turning around and, getting drafted in the 4th round by the Carolina Hurricanes. So a lot of different crossover there. So I'm interested. Do you feel like, kind of having that base of soccer, made you a better basketball player? Do you feel like some of those skills transferred over? I'd be interested to learn a little bit more about that.
No, I definitely do. There's a lot of comparisons between the game. I know, especially Elijah Wan. He grew up playing soccer, and the footwork was huge for him. So I guess just kind of learning different skills, it definitely translates. You got to be in shape, obviously, quickness, lateral movements, and I played a lot of defense in soccer too. And it's actually kind of similar in ways, like where you back up as the defender's going at you. So in terms of that, there's a lot of parallels between the two sports, in my opinion. So it's cool.
That's awesome. And I think the Hakeem, parallel is 100% true. Being able to kind of, have a base of, being able to move your feet quickly, whether that's, laterally side to side or, forward and backward. It not only makes you a better defender, but it makes you a better ball handler. I mean, you're not, uncoordinated when you're getting out there and having to, dribble and really kind of move around the court.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I would 100% agree with that. So it's cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I kind of want to get into, you had a really great, high school career. It was, personally fun, for me to follow you and for, kind of our whole group to follow you, which was awesome. But I kind of want to get into.
Appreciate that.
Oh my gosh, anytime, man. And I want to get into, kind of the end of your high school career, because, to address the elephant in the room, it wasn't what you would call a typical end to your senior year, with COVID kind of shortening everything. So take me into that a little bit. What was that like? How did that affect your season? What was kind of going through your mind at this point?
So the connection said it's unstable, but I think I got the gist of it. Ending the season especially school in the coronavirus, because we lost in the playoffs, so our season ended before everything got kind of shut down. So the school part of that was tough. I mean, we were supposed to have prom, obviously, and all the fun, because the second semester was when school gets fun for the seniors. I mean, it's already fun before, but it's like that's the best part. And I never went to a prom because my junior year I had a tournament, and then
Mhm.
senior year obviously it gets canceled. So that was definitely a bummer. And it was difficult. Online school was easy, but it was just a difficult thing to accept. I mean, obviously, there's so much bigger issues. There were people dying from it. We're just getting the school taken away. So I realized that, but for everyone though, it was just a bummer.
I totally get that. And I think, like you said, it affected a lot of people. And I'm interested to see, kind of what it was like, from a recruiting standpoint, as well,
Mm.
because, all of a sudden, you're end your season, and then now it's your kind of school year's cut short. How did take me kind of through the recruiting process for you, and how you ended up, at Concordia, kind of despite all of these other things, because I'd imagine it wasn't your traditional path.
Yeah, so I went to Cal Lutheran like the week before the quarantine started. I took my visit up there, ran with the guys, and I just they were having a good. They were going to start a good program. New coach coming in, and then I kind of wanted to be a little bit closer to home, with Concordia, because Kowloon's about 2-3 hours away, but Concordia is close. They're D2. They have a legit program. The coach here hasn't had a losing season in his time here,
Wow.
and he knows him and his staff know really what they're doing. And I'm definitely going to be pushed, really, really pushed to play. So that's what I wanted, and that's where I ended up going.
That's interesting.
So yeah.
And what was, obviously you couldn't do a lot of in-person stuff, I feel like. So was a lot of it done over the phone? I mean, to be able to kind of talk to the coach, or were you able to get out and potentially do some in-person stuff, and really just, show your skills?
Yeah, no. So I was supposed to come up and run with the team, but it got shut down like literally a week or two before I was supposed to go. So that was a bummer. But we just communicated over email really, and he saw me play. I think it was 2 summers ago, and then last summer because we played in a little tournament at our gym, Concordia's gym. So he kind of knew who I was, and then I reached out later in I don't know early February, maybe January, and then he generously gave me a spot on the team, and I'm super pumped for that. So getting an opportunity to play basketball.
That's awesome. And I appreciate you kind of bridging that for me, and doing that segue. You're making my job a little bit easier, which I appreciate. I want to talk about, kind of, you're now on campus, you've been working with the team, what has that been like? Obviously there's different kind of restrictions in place, but, take me kind of inside of that process, because, your freshman year, is a lot different than really any other freshman year, you know, through the
Yeah,
past couple of years. I mean, and especially from an athletic standpoint.
yeah. So we had to. One of the first things that we had a like group little workouts in groups of six. It was we all had to wear masks on the field for the first week. We did little circuits, and then we had to run the mile. That was a big one. Um, and then we just started going into the gym. I think it was the start of this week. Had a first official college practice, but so you're in groups of four, and you can only one group is on one half of the court, the other group is on another half of the court, and it's all just kind of as much social distancing as possible. No really contact, and it's just a lot of defense, reads off ball screens, and then lots of shooting where you grab your own ball and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
that's pretty much what we've been up to.
that's interesting. And do you feel like kind of having it be a little bit, different, a little bit different approach? Now you're kind of separate. Do you feel like that's, helped with your game, or do you think it's just been, has it, presented any kind of unique things where you're like, okay, like I kind of like this. I might take this into my training or into my kind of on-court practice, after all of this is over. Has there been anything like that where you felt like, oh, this is maybe more beneficial than the original way of doing it?
That's a good question. I think that the coaches have really done a good job at adapting, because I think, just judging from what other people have said on the team and what I think I know about them, is that they actually have pretty similar practice like schemes. So like the defensive stuff, instead of having, right. So what we try to do is on ball defense. So that was one of the things we've been really working on. And instead of like having a guy where put the ball up and then, you shot fake and the guy's playing defense on him, there's a cone right there and the coach is standing behind, and it's just basically you're at the cone and simulating the defense, but the coach is like raising the ball up and down behind it. So that's our way of social distancing, but it's pretty much like you're guarding him, if that makes sense.
No, that definitely makes sense. And how is it, how has it affected, your game? I'd be interested to get your thought. I mean, you are a guard, so do you feel like, as a shooter, maybe getting a little bit more time to, shoot and having an emphasis placed on that? Do you feel like that's, helped? How has that worked into just like your normal practice routine that you'd be doing, regardless of a pandemic going on?
Yeah, so I think with my training, the virus necessarily hasn't changed my practice scheme, but the things we've done in practice, like what the coaches have said, I'm definitely going to implement that into my practice, like the defensive stuff for sure, and the shooting drills. Like we did a shooting drill like the first day, and then later that day I went out and worked on it a little bit, because we can only use the outdoor court right now if it's just on our own. Like last week was the first time in the gym, but I definitely taken what the coaches had given us and then started using it in the practice. But nothing specifically, I wouldn't say, from that the virus has kind of taught me. You know what I mean?
No, totally.
Yeah.
And that's interesting. You brought up, you guys, you're just starting to get in the gym, but when it's kind of one-on-one, you're using the outdoor court. Obviously outdoor basketball hoops, a little bit different than kind of the indoor ones.
Yes.
What's that been like? Because obviously outdoor, you're kind of getting some different bounces. You really have to emphasize on getting the ball in the hoop and really doing it in a way where, you're not relying on a backboard or relying on kind of a rim to bank it in. Has that, do you feel like, has that made you a better shooter? Has that made you a better basketball player? Because I think it's two very different worlds, and it's two very different surfaces to practice on.
For sure. So I'm going to throw a curveball at you, Mike.
Okay.
This is going to sound weird. So the floor of the indoor gym is obviously terrific. Like because on the outdoor court, like I'm slipping and sliding all the time, especially my shoes are terrible and all that stuff. But the hoops specifically in the gym, like the rims are, I personally think they're stiff. Like the ball bounces a lot, even if it's just kind of like a little bounce on the rim. But versus on the outdoor court, the rims are super forgiving. So like you get all the bounces and stuff, versus in the gym, it's kind of the opposite. So
that's interesting.
Yeah, but when the quarantine started and my dad and I would get up and shoot in the mornings, and we didn't have access to a gym at that point, but the park we went to, Mike, I'm serious, those rims might be the tightest rims I've ever shot on.
Yeah.
So I know what you're saying, but this is just kind of a weird once in a while little deal where the rims outside are better.
That's interesting. It's
pretty funny.
That's hilarious, because you obviously don't expect it. But I want to talk about your summer training routine now, because had it been any other summer, you're in the gym a lot. You're doing some more kind of in the weight room lifting. You have access to all these things, but now with a lot of things getting shut down, and with indoor courts obviously not being a thing really for most of the summer, tell me a little about how what your training looked like, and just all of that, because I imagine it's a lot of different constraints and a lot of different kind of unique things.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things that we did was, like I said, my dad and I would go to this park early in the morning, and we'd get shots up. He'd rebound. He was super generous enough to rebound for me. My mom would come too. And then, so I do that. I'd shoot I really kind of, this was the year as I was telling you with the Swish one, I really started to break down my shot a little bit, refine it. Focus on the details, huge. So it wasn't necessarily the most fun. It was very tedious and such a grind. But so I'd focus on my shooting in the day, and then I'd come back home, dribble for like I'd say 20 to 30 minutes, and then this one's pretty funny. We didn't have any weights. We had 3 pound weights and then 5 pound weights.
Hmm.
So I'd literally get gallons of milk that we finished, and I'd fill it up with sand, and I'd do it for like shoulder workouts and all that stuff. And I'd put like ankle weights on my wrist to up the weight. So I was just kind of trying to be as creative as possible when the resources are limited.
That's
So
incredible.
that was that.
I absolutely love it. And do you felt like, that was something where, all things being equal, like, there was definitely a net positive effect?
Yeah, 100%. I just think it's kind of like that's kind of just like the story of like how it's been for my basketball journey. I'd say, I kind of just it's just like an analogous situation. I just kind of have to figure it out, especially being like 5'8" and you just playing with trees and guys who have way more athletic ability than you, longer arms, all that stuff. So it's kind of just like I didn't have the weights, I didn't have like the physical traits, and I just kind of figure it out. So if that means putting sand in jugs to get bigger, it might not be as beneficial as weights, but it's the best I got, and I'm gonna roll with it.
Well, you bring up an interesting point, and I kind of want to dive a little bit deeper in that. You talk about how, you
For
know,
sure.
for a lot of your playing, you're playing with bigger dudes. I mean, you're playing at a guard position, which, obviously traditionally a little bit of a smaller position. How have you adapted your game? How have you kind of worked your game to not only kind of overcome playing with, guys who are, much larger, but also just in general, like, complement teammates who, maybe are a little bit taller, have a little bit longer arms. Take me inside, your thought process from a basketball perspective, and then from a training perspective as well.
So I think that since I'm small and I don't have necessarily like the physical attributes that would be sweet to have. Not gonna lie. Um, Thanks, mom and dad. I would. What was I gonna say? Like, I think it just comes down to how well you can do the little things. Like the little details that a lot of people pass on. That just kind of it's just a little detail, but it sounds cliche, but the small details kind of really add up and make the big difference because you're just like making sure you do everything right. Like you're playing defense the way you're supposed to play defense, or doing all that stuff, and just kind of really paying attention to what you need to focus on and work on to get better. You know, so that's what I do. And then another one of the things is I just try to. This might be a little branch off from the topic, but I just try to
No, it's okay.
go like all out and pretty much expose myself. Like we're playing ones, and this one of my suite mates who's my position, tremendous, super super good. His game like is like James Harden in a way, where he just does these step backs and stuff. But the thing that I have to do in order to keep up with him is like I gotta like pick him up full court, you know. Like I said, hey, let's play ones. Just let me play defense, and I'll pick you up full court because that's the only way I'm gonna get better. And I personally have to do that, in my opinion, to really compete with these guys. If that makes sense.
No, that totally makes sense. And it's, basketball is obviously it's an interesting team sport, and that, everyone, kind of does have to adapt to, what's going on with the team. And like you said, if it's a situation where, you come in and now you're picking up a guy full court, like that's
Mm-hmm.
the tone you're setting, and that's what you're adapting to. But
Exactly.
it's 100% a positive at the end of the day.
100%.
That's interesting.
100%.
So you've been on campus for a little bit. What's it been like working with, your now teammates? Obviously, a little bit different, kind of getting to know everyone, and just with a lot of different things going on. But, what's it been like, working with these guys, getting to know your teammates, and really just bonding with these guys?
Yeah, no, it's been great. We got a really good room. It's super fun. Love the guys, and the guys are super supportive too. Like they'll help you. They'll like talk you through it. Like, hey, let's go, and they say, hey, let's go, Connor, or stuff like that. So it's really encouraging, especially from upperclassmen and just guys you're surrounded with to help, push you forward and keep you kind of motivated, let you know that, okay, like we're in this together. So it's cool. I really like this team, and I'm excited to see what the season holds. If hopefully there is a season.
No, totally. And one thing I love to kind of ask all of our, athletes who have made the jump from high school to college and, from college sometimes to the pros, have you had a moment so far where you're like, oh, like, this is for real. Like I'm playing with these guys. Have you had any kind of a moment where you look back on it and you're like, we're playing basketball now. We're playing basketball at an incredibly high level.
I've been through that too many times, Mike. I've thought about it. It's like, okay, man, like this is real, It's not like I'm not playing against people who are necessarily like my size as much, right? It's just a whole different game. I was shooting with a guy the other day who's like 24 and he's jacked, and it's like, man, okay, this is the big boy basketball, this is not like child's play,
yeah,
so to speak, so it's super cool. It's a challenge, and it's just opportunity to, give it your best shot and see what that holds, whatever that may be. So
no, 100%. But I think it's like you said right there. It's, even just kind of something as simple as you're like, oh, like you're, 24 and, definitely have been in the weight room a bunch. Like, it's small things like that kind of lead to a little bit of a like, okay, like, we're not in Kansas anymore. Like truly.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I've felt that so many times, Mike. You got it. You hit it on the head.
That's awesome. And kind of another thing I want to talk about, because what's been the biggest difference between, high school training in high school and training in college? Obviously there are going to be differences, but what have you found to be, some of the most prominent differences, whether it's, something in the weight room or, whether the way you kind of approach on-court practice or, whether the way you're approaching, off-court stuff as far as learning an offense, learning a bunch of different schemes, what have been some differences between, the high school game and then obviously the college game?
Yeah, for sure. So we haven't played up and down with the college stuff. So obviously the speed's going to be way faster. But specifically for practice oriented stuff, the intensity of a college practice is a lot. There's just a lot more energy. There's a lot more communication. But my high school coach and staff really did, like, we did very similar drills. It's just the people who were in it are just probably or are a lot more athletic. So it's but the college practice is definitely more intense. Like you're going boom, 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 one station to the next. There's like no stalling and all that stuff. But my high school did really prepare me for the stuff we're learning in college, which is cool.
That's incredible. And I think that's obviously a testament to all the work you've put in as well, to be able to kind of, there's going to be a couple moments here and there like it is with everyone, but, as far as thinking the game, a lot of those, foundational pieces, it sounds like have already been laid and are there.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. I got the foundation. Now it's just like tweaking it and doing all that stuff. But the thing I know is that I'm going to put in the work. So that the work definitely does not scare me.
That's awesome. And what do you see kind of as this year moves on and evolves and really, whether or not you guys play, how do you see your game evolving and what things are you really trying to work on, this season? Is it a lot about, laying kind of another foundation on top of what you already have? Is it about improving, something with, ball handling or defense, or, is it even just something like, kind of working within the offense? What are the things that, the goals that you're setting for this year that you really want to work on?
Okay, I'll give you a couple life goals specific to basketball, and then I'll just give you specific basketball ones. So my life ones for basketball and just for in general, stay in the moment and be where my feet are. I know it sounds super obvious, but it's so easy for the mind to wander and leave the present state. So that's definitely a big one for me, is to stay in the moment. Another one would just be just to really listen and soak up all you can, because when you're dealing with a coach of this, status, which is super good, and a lot of people who have done a lot of great things, like with the people I'm surrounded by. Just learn from them, keep keep it open, because that's how you're going to get better, and then specifically for basketball, I'd say my biggest one is to really focus on my shooting. I was out with I had some elbow surgery, nerve damage, so I
Oh
was
no.
kind of out for a while, and I'm just getting back into the shooting stuff. So I just want to keep working on my shot, refining that, and getting it as good as I can, every day, and then tighten up the handle a little bit, and then really, really push myself on the defensive end. Like picking guys up full court, telling, hey, you get to play as much offense as you want. Just let me pick you up from full court. But I think the thing is, it's like no one wants to get their ankles broken. No one wants to be exposed in front of anyone. But I'm like, hey, if it's gonna get me to where I want to go, break my ankles as many times as you want. You know what I mean? Like I'm not
Yeah.
afraid of falling down and making a fool out of myself. I got the vision, and I want to get there. So whatever it takes.
I absolutely love kind of that last thought. Like you said, it's, at the end of the day, the goal is it's to get better, and it's to get better really no matter what.
Yeah, 100%.
And if it takes, if it takes a couple of moments, you're like, I could have done that a little bit better, or a couple of different learning experiences.
Yeah.
Then so be it. Because as long as, the goal is, as long as you're on track to meet that goal of getting better, it's a moot point whether or not, you failed or anything like that. It's all about just getting better at the end of the day.
100% agree with that. That's a good call, Mike.
Well, I'm excited. I got one more question, then I want to move on to the rapid fire, which I think is just going to be a lot of fun. We always have a lot of fun during the rapid fire, and
yeah, sweet.
It's going to be a blast. And the last question I want to ask is, what are you excited for this season? What is the thing that you're most excited for? What are you looking forward to? Is it bonding with teammates? Is it improving your game? Is a lot of that things? What are you looking forward to this upcoming season?
It's always been a dream to just put on that college basketball jersey. You think about it, since like I said, I quit soccer over here, literally at the Concordia field, and said, hey, all right, we're going all in on basketball, see where this goes. So just the opportunity to compete with, like, guys that are just big time. They know how to play basketball. They're big time athletes. They're throwing windmills left and right. And it's just like, you get to get a chance to play with these guys. I think that's kind of what I'm most excited for, honestly. And also just getting better every day. For some, like, I just love doing the little things. At first, when you first start, like, especially when I know how it's going to be in the weight room, the first week is going to be like, oh man, I've lifted so hard and I haven't made any progress. But it's like, you just got to keep doing it. A couple weeks, then it's a couple months, and then, you're starting to get to where you want to go. So I'm a big process guy, and I don't really shy away from that stuff. That intrigues me.
Well, I think, on behalf of the whole group, we're excited for you to kind of go through that process and to see you grow and evolve. So we're going to jump right into the rapid fire. So it's 5 questions. You don't have to answer like light speed fast. It's just kind of some funnier. We're going to have a little bit of fun, talk about a lot of different things. So the first thing I want to ask you is, you're a basketball guy. You're a basketball nut. Give me your all-time starting 5.
My all-time starting 5. To be honest, Mike, I never watched basketball. I couldn't even tell you who's in the playoffs, like in the Final Four or whatever it is. But all-time starting lineup, I got to go with, we'll go at 1, Steve Nash. At 2, Kobe. At 3, Larry Bird. At 4, Dirk. And at 5, I got to shout out my boy. We're going to guard lineup, Ron Baker, Wichita State grad, a couple years back. That's one of my favorite guys.
Okay. I like it. A little bit of college, a little bit of pro. So I think it's a really solid starting 5.
Thank you, Mike.
I think I think it's really good. I like what you got with kind of Kobe and Steve in the backcourt. So I think it's going to be, you got a rock solid foundation right there. And then Dirk at the 4. I mean, you can't beat that. Unstoppable. Okay.
Although I saw Andrew Carlson getting some buckets up at Gonzaga. His intramural team might be a threat.
They might be. They might be. So you're 1 for 1 now on the rapid fire, which is awesome. This is great. I want to go to your next question. And this is one that we talk to a lot of our athletes about, and I'm really interested to get your take. What's your favorite post-game meal? So you've just wrapped up a game. Where are you going? Are you going to a restaurant? Are you getting something at home? Are you making a smoothie? What's the post-game go-to for you?
Chick-fil-A, 2 sandwiches, deluxe, fries if I did well.
Okay.
I did well.
The deluxe fries, that's a good incentive.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I like that. So you're 2 for 2. And this one is, gotta ask all, I feel like I gotta ask all, people who are in college freshmen, especially, what's your go-to at the dining hall? Are you going for cereal at the dining hall? What's your go-to meal, go-to snack if you're walking into the dining hall?
Yeah. So our food here is a little suspicious. It progressively gets worse as the day goes on, but breakfast is always pretty solid. Burrito. There's a burrito, egg, cheese, hash browns, and bacon, and I put some ketchup and tapatio sauce on it with some fruit on the side, and that's a great breakfast for me. I'm not too much of a picky eater.
Okay, I like that. So that's a really rock solid, I feel like, meal no matter what. So, okay.
Yes.
You're 3 for 3. Love the answers we've gotten so far.
Thank you.
This next one, you're a California kid, got roots in California. If you could give someone a recommendation of the #1 spot they got to go, where are you sending people? What's your #1 tourist recommendation for California?
The Gleason house. Yes, sir.
Hey, I love it.
Great food, some hospitality. I gotta go with the Gleason house.
The Gleason house. Okay, that's one of our favorite spots, obviously. So we're a little bit biased there
Always
as well.
welcome.
Always welcome. Well, that's okay. I love that answer though. I love it. You're 4 for 4. And this last one it's something we ask all of our guests. And obviously with Anchor, we're all about building strength. We're all about, getting stronger. And the one thing we love to ask all of these people is what gives you strength? What is the one thing, whether it's, person, place, family, what's the one thing that gives you strength?
Ooh, that's a great question. If you asked me this 2 years ago, I'd probably say it'd be the fact that I just kept working super, super hard, and I just never gave up and all that stuff, which was awesome. It put me in the place where I am today. But now what gives me strength, I'd say, is just my mental game right now. It's definitely, I've read so many books, especially in the quarantine. It just gave me new light and new insight. Staying in the moment, obviously, like I said, is key. And then these books tap into different things that relate to your happiness. Like other people's opinions 2 years ago would be, my head would be like a torpedo just spinning around, getting phased. But what gives me strength is like other people's opinions don't bother me. And the fact that I try to be where my feet are as much as possible. That's really all I can ask of myself.
I absolutely love that. And I got one follow-up to now. Now you've piqued my interest with the mental approach to your game. How has that evolved over the last couple of years? You kind of alluded to it there, but what are you doing really now with your mental approach that you feel like is helpful that, maybe you've learned?
Yeah. So it used to be my confidence was definitely one of my lowest or my biggest weaknesses, especially when I was growing up. I was always super selfless, and I was like, if I missed a shot, I'd be like, okay, it's not my turn anymore, But over the years, I've just, like I said, read the books, and I've just been, I've just, really made it a focus to, you know, stay confident, believe in yourself, really trust the work that you put in, and ultimately, be present. And that's kind of what I've been doing for this past 6 months. And then, like I said, self-talk, huge. Wasn't even aware of it before for a long time, but it's the best thing I've ever done, was just to change the way I thought. It sounds crazy, but the way you think determines the way you live. And I've just done it and have never looked back. It's not like, I'm not saying I achieved anything. It's a constant battle at all times, you know,
Hmm.
like there's
Yeah.
days and there's moments where you just start getting anxious and you're, you know, for no reason, like in the middle of the day. But it's like, you got to sometimes just look back and see how far you've come and keep climbing the mountain.
That's awesome. And I'm going to ask you a bonus rapid fire question here because you've mentioned a lot about the different books you're reading, and I can't not get a book recommendation out of you.
Awesome.
What's your number one book recommendation, you know, for really anything?
There's a couple. You mind if I give you a couple books?
Go for it. Go give us a couple of books.
I can't pick one just yet. So I just finished The Alchemist yesterday. Have you read that one?
I don't think I have yet. No.
Tremendous book. Just finished that one yesterday. Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind was another one. Very, very confusing, but the message was awesome. And then the third and final one would be Instant Millionaire.
Okay.
So those are the three. And they're all actually quick reads, which is super nice for me because I'm not necessarily the big time reader, but I'm always looking for new ways to just learn. So those three books I love them. I actually brought them up to school with me.
Nice. Well, I love getting a good book recommendation, and I know all of our listeners are absolutely going to love that. So I'm going to for sure add those to my wish list on Amazon.
Sweet.
But more importantly, man, we can't say thanks enough. I mean, you know, taking time out of your day to come talk to us. This was just, you know, an absolute joy, and we're really excited to, you know, fingers crossed to watch you play, and obviously we're going to be rooting for you the whole way.
Thank you, Mike.